So Abrego Garcia had a massive victory over the Trump regime in court, but the victory was that Abrego wanted to stay in prison. The federal courts granted a motion that he originally filed that would have basically allowed him in a normal circumstance to be released during the pendency of his federal criminal case after he was brought back to the United States. But because of the authoritarian tactics of the Trump regime, whether it's alligator Alcatraz in the Everglades in Florida, or CCOT, the concentration camp in El Salvador, or sending people to Libya, the best option right now for Abrego is, okay, Judge, thank you. You've recognized that based on all of the circumstances, I can be released into the public during the pendency of the case. We were able to expose, this was a pretty good part about the detention hearing, how weak the government's case actually is, relying on double hearsay that traces itself back to people who are who've been deported 5 times, people who have been felons, who are getting sweetheart deals, actual people who are deported. The criminals that Donald Trump talks about are the ones testifying against Abrego, and they're the ones being welcomed with open arms because of the politicized nature of this. So the win was the court saying, Abrego, you win. What should we do? Keep me in prison, Abrego says for now. And then the Trump regime was like, nah, let him out. We want to bring him back to El Salvador, to which Abrego like, no, keep me in there. I just think it's a sign of the authoritarian times that we're in, that a request like this would even be made in the first place, because it would be unfathomable. Harry, tell me about it. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, so I've never seen this before. In fact, there's not really an allowance in the Bail Reform Act to keep someone in when the conditions for his release have been satisfied. That's the presumption. So he should be going out. And I should not chuckle, because this is really poignant, Ben. This is a guy who was just disappeared on the U.S.'s mistake in March 15th. He's now back in the country, tantalizingly close to his wife, 3 children, one of whom has special needs. And he says, you know what? Keep me locked up, please, because otherwise the government, which has said, remember, they brought him back after first saying he'll never come back here. If he does, we'll deport him. Then they're ordered to facilitate his return, and they do, supposedly with heroic measures. I tend to doubt that. But they bring him back to face these criminal charges. Ha, ha, ha. There's a nice little trick that to really, the theme here is, how can we make Abrego miserable at every turn for the great sin of our having messed up by deporting him in the first place. So they say, no, he's a serious criminal, and we're going to try these charges. As you say, at the bail hearing, it really came clear that they've got this one stop that happened in Tennessee in 2022, where the officers let him go. There were a lot of people in the car. Now the U.S. wants to charge that he was transporting deportable aliens. Okay, maybe. But that is really all they have. And they built this, added some clouds. And as you say, second level hearsay with some bad customers that they gave sweetheart deals to. There's just no end to their kind of malice and determination to get at him. And so now I think it's clear, even though they promised that we were going to bring him back and these are serious charges, now that he's at liberty and could actually be with family and children, I think you're going to see them move to deport him right away. He's made motions in 2 different courts. The one that had his federal habeas corpus claim, but of course now that, as the judge herself has said, I don't know, this may be moot, and the one in Tennessee. And so what's happening now is just a couple week respite while the judge in Tennessee considers this emergency motion. But you may be more creative than I here, but I don't really see the authority of a district court judge to order the administration not to deport someone and instead to subject them to the criminal process they've been, ordered to undergo based on a grand jury. And I just think it's a bottomless kind of malice, really. It's so odd to see a government acting this way, but just we are not going to give him a minute of, contentment in his life. And again, why is that? Because we screwed up and sent him there. But that would be a victory. Donald Trump cannot abide someone else having a victory. And I think after, they'll try this emergency motion, but man, it's an uphill climb. That at least as I sort of, look at it, we'll see the papers coming forward very soon. But like what would be the basis for a district court saying you may not move to deport this guy? So it's a saga with no end and really just nasty at every turn by the administration.
Right. Because here's the thing. I've never been like, I'm an Abrego Garcia fan. I don't really know him. I don't know one way or another if the allegations against him, as stated in the indictment, not what they say outside of the indictment, that's what I'm focused on, is true or not. The trafficking at issue involves workers. There's not accusations in the indictment of drugs or things like that. They try to attach him to some ring 5 layers away. But as it relates to him, it's one incident, a traffic stop, 2022 in Tennessee. We've seen the traffic stop on video. But look, if he ultimately committed crimes, if he's someone who should be, deported to another country, and you go through a due process, I'm kind of fine with that. Okay, if you go back to the order in 2019 that said that he could be deported to anywhere other than El Salvador, if the Trump regime just followed that, we could look back at that and say there were a lot of problems with that immigration proceeding, that it still relied on hearsay, that the cop who was giving the testimony was involved in his own scandal involving giving secrets to a prostitute and was not someone who should. Oh, you can all
he got fired. Yeah.
But the reality is that a finding was made and the government was within its rights to send this guy to any other country other than El Salvador within limits and due process, which the Trump regime also wants to fight now with third country deportations and not have to deal with where you actually put the people. But, look, you put him in another country, I'd probably, there's no issue here. But the idea that they want to throw this guy so badly in CCOT, in the one place that he shouldn't be at because he can die. And they want to.
And I got to interrupt you. I'm sorry. They're gonna deport him to a third country. They say third country. And
I'm saying what their desire is to send him is to what third country do you think they're going to put him in? Do you think they're going to?
Sudan?
They're certainly not going to put him in.
They want to immiserate him. There's a big word. But I just want you to know about that.
Exactly. So denying him the due process rights, even of now having the federal trial, it's like, okay, you have this federal trial, go through it. Let's see if he's guilty or not guilty. Let's see what the jury says. We can then all assess it. And by the way, if he's found not guilty too, there could still be repercussions. You do have less rights when you're not here. But that's the process. Everything's a gimmick to them and is a press release. And using the force of the executive branch, they then are able just to take advantage of all of the presumptions in favor of you and just wield it in a way that's sick and disgusting. I'll give you the final word.
Yeah, so I totally agree. And there's one other point here. This is a case that because of their notoriety and sending them down there and then denying it and doing everything, every possible excuse, he's really is a criminal or it doesn't matter or we'll deport him anyway or the dog ate it. It seems quite clear, and this came through at the detention hearing, that they've basically loaded up a criminal indictment with charges that don't really fly. They've really used, people who are not credible. This would not really make it in a normal U.S. attorney's office. We have I think the public has a strong interest in knowing, okay, what did you say? Who were these guys? The number one guy, by the way, Ben, they've charged Abrego with being in a conspiracy because of this guy from 2009 to 2020. He's testified. I didn't even meet Abrego till 2015. We saw it just turns my stomach. You said no drugs, but Bondi, of course, got up and did everything she could to dirty Abrego up outside the four corners of the indictment. They've acted really unconscionably and unlawfully in the very federal charging here. And that's something we have a right to know, I think. And it may be the principal motivation now that they want us, we said it was so serious, but now we don't care about the criminal indictment. We just want to deport them. That will, in effect, smother in the catacombs of history, because all grand jury stuff, all the stuff that happened here, all the mistakes they made, all the kind of overreach they did. And so once again, it's not just injustice to the individual, but we don't get to actually know what the government did. That's the same kind of fight, say, that Boasberg is fighting still in his court, etc. They come out and say all this crap. Well, put up or shut up. And now they're going to say, oops, we don't have to.
There you have it. Harry Littman from the Talking Feds YouTube, Talking Feds podcast, and Talking Feds Substack. Harry, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, Ben. Always a pleasure. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.